Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. I'm Alex.
I'm Julio, and thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. Help promote the algorithm and spread the word.
You can also find us on SoundCloud to subscribe and review. And don't forget to visit our main website, wearethecontrarians.com.
Follow us on Twitter at Contrarian Prime, and to like us on Facebook, visit facebook.com/Contrarian Prime.
And if you have the willpower to keep up with our pretentious ramblings, you can follow us individually at Contrarian Alex for myself and at Ovnio for Julio. That's OVNIO.
Now, time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Michael.
Huzzah.
A John Travolta story.
A John Travolta joint. Actually, it would be a Nora Ephron joint.
Starring John Travolta.
A vehicle that William Hurt drives with John Travolta in the back seat. Yes, hello. Welcome back to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my friend and co-host Julio. Julio, it's been about a year since we last saw John Travolta. Or has it been 2 years?
No. Because we...
when was the summer of Travolta?
I don't know, but we relapsed.
I know we had Wild Hogs.
I was going to say, you're not counting.
I was going to circle it back around. It's been considerable time since we spent,
pleasurable time.
8 days a week with Mr. Travolta.
Yes.
And then we did briefly run into him, kind of when you run into a friend at the mall or the airport or something.
Probably a more embarrassing scenario than that.
With Wild Hogs. Yes, that is also true. We ran into him coming out of Spencer's Gifts with Wild Hogs. But we're here with our buddy John once again, going back to the year 1996, Christmas Day of 1996, with Nora Ephron's Michael. I don't know, would you call this a comedy drama?
A supernatural comedy drama?
A whimsical, supernatural comedy drama. Does it fantasy film is how it's described here.
It's certainly not a documentary.
No.
Angels do not exist, no matter how hard Nora Ephron wants me to believe.
Or, I'm just looking at the poster right now. I was going to say where Bob Hoskins and his tabloid, he has a massive "and" credit. It's just like...
The "and" is bigger than his name.
Yeah, and I forgot the tagline was, he's an angel, not a saint. Because John Travolta, in all his glory in this, his glorious coiffed hair, his sausage tits, and his spare tire belly. We only get the one shot of him in his boxers, but it's worth
enough.
It's worth the wait. And his incessant smoking and drinking and high intake of sugar. He's definitely not what we would come to think of an angel. But before we get into this movie bit by bit and discuss this, first of all, Randy Newman plays us in. So we'll be very excited to splice in some Randy Newman clips for this episode. If this is your first time listening to Contrarians, we appreciate your listen. To give you a quick rundown of what you can expect here, we like to rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. That's what we like to say. Find a movie on Rotten Tomatoes that is highly rated. As they like to say, in some cases, certified fresh. Take it down a few pegs, make a case for, why it shouldn't be that high in praise. And then on the other side of the coin, find a movie typically between 40% and below. With this one, it's a bit higher than usual. We usually aim for 30% and below. A rotten film, and then make a case for the good in it. Being that Michael here is 38%, we'll be making a case for its positive merit in the first portion. If you want to know how we really feel about this little ditty, just hang around for the second half of the podcast entitled Real Talk, where we discuss how we really feel.
This is the third Nora Ephron movie we've done, and it's all three of them have been rotten. You would think that Nora Ephron was not a successful filmmaker.
I guess, was You've Got Mail well received?
No, it made a lot of money.
I mean, Julie and Julia was nominated for an Oscar, but that was Meryl Streep, right? Got nominated for that?
Yes.
And then Sleepless in Seattle. I know a lot of people like that movie.
So, if you have a heart, yes.
So we're covering the B-sides here.
It's true. When you think Nora Ephron, you do not think Michael
Mixed nuts.
Mixed nuts.
And certainly not Bewitched. Being that this is a 38%er means the critics weren't exactly jumping head over heels for this. What were they saying about Michael?
Not very nice things, but also the critics didn't even show up. Is the thing. Michael, I mean, by 96. By 96, Rotten Tomatoes was up and running. We've done movies that are even earlier than that, and there's a gazillion reviews.
Mm-hmm.
This is just like a handful of reviews. Thankfully, I was able to pull 3 quotes on each side. So here, Contrarians Corner will do the rotten side, starting with Frank Okiang from Movie Eye, who says, a cloying and cloudy romantic comedy in which Travolta dons angelic wings. Michael is innocuously whimsical, but wasteful.
Okay.
Michael DeQuina from themoviereport.com says, not much in the way of laughs or anything else. And finally, Emmanuel Levy from Variety says, Travolta's charismatic presence is the only positive element in Nora Ephron's flawed romantic fable, marred by rough narrative spots and scattered direction, again showing that Ephron lacks the most basic technical skills.
Jesus.
He went all out against Nora Ephron.
Deep in. Yeah, and completely ignoring Sparky the dog and Robert Pastorelli.
Robert Pastorelli making his triumphant
return to the Contrarians. Retroactively, he was also in Be Cool.
Much smaller role.
Yeah, the less said about that movie, the better. Michael begins we later find out in Iowa, but just a really rural country town out there. We see an old woman and a silhouette, an unmistakable silhouette of John Travolta going into a local bank.
Do you think that we recognize Travolta because we spent so much time with him a couple of years ago?
I'd like to think if I saw him in person, a stranger on the bus type, he would still just exude that presence as he does here just from a silhouette shot.
You would smell the cookies?
Yes, exactly. They go into a bank, they come out really quick, and then just kind of out of nowhere, a storm picks up and knocks this bank over. It's a strange way to set the table.
Ominous.
But we're quickly thrown over to Frank Quinlan, played by William Hurt, looking like every ethics professor ever in this movie.
Well, the hottest ethics professor you could have had.
Unfortunately, there's no shot of him slowly taking his glasses off and then doing the and then, pulling out a handkerchief and wiping them off. His second is the aforementioned Robert Pastorelli playing Huey Driscoll. They work for, not the National Enquirer.
The National Mirror.
Okay, the National Mirror, which is the National Enquirer. It's a tabloid that's sold, if you're waiting in line at the checkout counter at the grocery store, it's going to be right there with Bat Boy and Elvis Lives.
Bad Boy and Who Really Killed JFK.
There you go. And... Regis Philbin's tawdry love affair, and
just like really nasty photographs of celebrities claiming that they're dying.
Yeah. Oh, constantly. Yeah. What are they trying to do? It was when they came out, because it's like a Christmas set. It looks like they're taking Christmas pictures of some sort, and that's how I remembered it was a Christmas Day movie. And I guess this is the one reference to Christmas. They're trying to basically do a photo shoot for the new cover story,
right? Pretending that they found elves.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Is that it?
That's why not. We find out quickly the editor-in-chief of the National Mirror is Bob Hoskins.
Super Mario himself.
Yes, shows up to play, presumably on set for 6 to 7 hours. He basically bookends this movie.
Yep, he gets you pumped because he barks every line he has, gets you excited, convinces you that this is a life or death scenario, basically.
And then he goes, tunes. Yeah, he tells them, this story's not going to work, and then doesn't William Hurt go back to his desk and finds a card that was written to him?
Right, he finds a letter from
Pansy.
Pansy, yes. Yeah. Is this a known actress, the old lady?
She's not known to me.
Because I want to say she was Cloris Leachman, but I never saw her.
No,
so she's like
Jean Stapleton.
Okay, so the poor man's Cloris Leachman.
She writes to say, hey, I've got an angel out here if you want to come. Oh, she was Archie Bunker's wife on All in the Family.
Okay.
I doubt that means much to you coming to America.
I know the show.
The early 2000s.
In America, is Cloris Leachman the poor man's Gene Stapleton.
Not to my Edith Bunker. Achie. She won a Golden Globe for Best Actress on a television series.
Oh, not for Michael?
No. I'm not sure if there are any acting nominations for Michael. Gene Stapleton, Edith Bunker, plays Pansy Milbank, and she sends away a letter to the Mirror saying, hey, I've got a real fucking angel here. Get on out and see this. So William Hurt and Pastorelli go and present this story to Bob Hoskins. Somehow Andie MacDowell gets wrapped up in this situation.
They walk in the middle
like
of her
interviewing.
job interview.
Yeah. And Hoskins is sitting on the couch next to her saying, you want to be a star, don't you? And doesn't she lie? Says she's studied angels.
Yeah. So we find out later that...
I'm sorry, we don't know that she lied yet.
Well, we know that... Yeah, that's right. We don't know. There's something fishy about her, but we don't know what it is.
Essentially, all this is to set up an odd couple situation.
With Pastorelli as a third wheel.
Well, and the Sparky. Pastorelli has his soulmate
That's
and
true.
Sparky
So
the
it's
dog.
two odd couples.
It's just setting up. It's the scene in fucking Road Trip where they get DJ Qualls to lend him his car.
Yeah. So the thing with the dog, because this is really probably the most important plot point in the movie, is that Bob Hoskins can't get rid of Pastorelli, who I guess sucks at his job, because the dog is attached to Pastorelli.
Mm-hmm.
But Bob Hoskins is in love with the dog because he believes that the dog is the reincarnation of a dog he had as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, Pastorelli has all the trappings of a bad worker. His clothes don't fit him properly, always covered in flop sweat.
It doesn't help that he's
nervous.
standing next to William Hurt,
Yes.
who's as alpha male as they come.
The physical embodiment of serene.
Yes.
They set on a quest to Iowa to find this alleged angel. William Hurt is looking for a story. This is basically what he's going to treat to save his career. And again, Andie MacDowell is coming along for the ride, claiming that she has studied angel phenomenon and knows quite a bit about angels.
It's pretty smart because it's not like anybody can disprove that. If you say I'm an angel expert, what are they going to do? I mean,
Yeah, for real. They arrive in Iowa. We are introduced to Pansy, who has a hell of a cough and is just, an old lady, with all due respect to Miss Jean Stapleton. She here portrays an old lady that was kind of at the end of the road. No pun intended. We're introduced to Michael. The first line we hear John Travolta utter in this is, "Smokes. Where are my smokes?"
and that's before we even see him.
And then the main thing is they build it up. It's subverting expectations because it shows him walking upstairs and like the floor's starting to give. So you're expecting him to come out like fucking fat bastard in Austin Powers. And he comes down and he's definitely put on a few LBs for this role. Staying alive, John Travolta, this is not.
No, this is that weird.
Perfect John Travolta, this is not.
No, this is not even. I mean, definitely not basic
Mm-hmm.
John Travolta. This is him taking a big chance, I think, because he had just come back. We'd just gotten him back. Pulp Fiction was only a couple of years prior, and he just went all in. He let himself go, which is pretty brave, I think, because there is no way he has to be in his 40s at least here. You put on that amount of weight.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're actually going to be able to shed it.
He would have been 4D. I'm kind of bummed. I know off the top of my head that John Travolta was born in 1956, but yeah.
Well, there you go. So that's pretty cool. I mean, that shows some commitment to the role because he could have played Michael as a more standard Travolta character, smoother, less, I wouldn't say Michael is repulsive, but he's definitely not what you think of when you think of
John Travolta.
John Travolta.
He's not
or
Vincent
an angel.
Vega. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an angel. He's not a saint.
But even then, that doesn't say he's going to be overweight and he's going to chew his mouth open and
Smoke incessantly.
Smoke incessantly and kind of look like shit all the time. You could
Be
play
a womanizer.
Yeah. Well, but see, you could have this movie play exactly the same way and he could still look better and sound better and it wouldn't affect the plot. So this is very much a Travolta choice where he was like, hey, can I just transform myself?
He does, but we do get a little bit of familiar Travolta a bit later on in the film. Pansy ends up dying. Sad, but it's part of life.
Your compassion is so believable.
They attend her funeral. This is where we find that Andy McDowell was the original Juno, or not Juno. Do you know Natalie Portman's character's name off the top of your head from Garden State?
Oh God, no.
Okay, well, she was original that. You know how Natalie Portman tries to be so quirky and original? We find out here that Andy McDowell, just as a hobby of hers, writes country western songs on the side. She fucking pulls out her notepad at the funeral and starts writing down lyrics. It's like something out of Walk the Line.
It's a whole sequence of revelations.
Walk hard.
Because a big theme with this in this movie is just the secrets we keep and how they keep us from connecting, right? So there's a lot of mysteries running along. One of them is what's Andy McDowell's real role, because we know that it's implied that
Dorothy Winters.
She is not telling the truth about being an angel expert.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that Travolta is the one that wrote to William Hurt to get him to come.
Yeah.
So he had like an ulterior motive. It's not that the old lady did it.
Because he reveals that it's basically just he wants to go on a road trip to Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, William Hurt, we don't even know at this point that this is a secret, but we'll find out later. It's like, why is he working for Bob Hoskins? He seems like he's capable of so much more, and he's slumming it at this shitty tabloid. I think the only pure person here is Pastorelli and his dog.
Oh, yeah.
He's open-hearted, has nothing to hide.
Just a dude.
Just a dude.
And in some cases, being a dude, just a dude, that's perfectly fine.
I mean, you need him because
it's a thing to be content with.
You need somebody that you can relate to, because Andy McDowell is too hot and talented. William Hurt, it's too masculine and
too hot and talented
and hot. And Travolta's Travolta,
the sexual tyrannosaur of his time.
Yeah, give me the average Joe, the ordinary guy. Oh, thank you, Robert Pastorelli. There you are with your dog.
He's Bryan Cranston in Godzilla. It just brings you down to earth to see him.
The regular man POV. Travolta and Hurt are like towering over you.
So, as Julio mentioned, we find out that this was all Michael's ploy to get to go to Chicago. He wants to see the Sears Tower. He wants to go on a road trip because he wants to see the small attractions that the United States highways offer, which includes the world's largest ball of twine, the world's largest nonstick frying pan.
It's the things we take for granted.
I mean, honestly, this could have been an entry into our road trip story arc that we did.
I had forgotten that it was a road trip.
I did too. Yeah, I just remembered John Travolta having feathers that are falling out of him consistently.
That's all you need. It's like, I'm in. Honestly, from the beginning, when the credits are rolling and you see Nora Ephron, Travolta, William Hurt, Andy McDowell, this was before I even realized who Pastorelli was.
Yeah.
It's like Bob Hoskins. And then it keeps going. Joy Lauren Adams, Carla Gugino. Like, stop it. I got it. I'm in.
And some of those characters we didn't even recognize at first when they came along, but the staples of any true road trip movie. They go to their first few attractions. We end up in a saloon. I think the name of it on the side is Joe's. This is actually recorded at a honky-tonk saloon in Green, Texas, which I've been to. And as I told Julio, they still have a plaque on the wall commemorating the scenes with Travolta there. It still looks pretty much the same, just doesn't say Joe's on the side.
Were you lucky enough to be in the middle of a bar brawl?
With amazingly impish and whimsical Randy Newman music playing in the background?
Yes.
Through this, we learned that Travolta is a bit of a ladies' man, and that the women have an insatiable appetite for him. But
he doesn't resist it.
No, he in fact encourages it.
Yes, which is great. I think that was a very... Generally, sex and religion don't seem to go together.
No.
And it was refreshing to just see a movie where they were like, no, he's an angel. By now, we've established he's an angel. He has the wings. He's done a few tricks. And now he's perfectly okay with hooking up, having some fun. Sex, it's just another way of enjoying life.
The Like a Prayer music video was not the only piece of media in the 90s to mix religion and sex. He sees these women fawning over him, so he goes and hits the dance floor, because it's a Travolta movie, goddammit. We're going to hit the dance floor at one time or the other. And he's so good, and he's able to captivate these women so heavily. They hang on his every movement to the point where they pull off this very choreographed dance routine having no prior practice.
Well, he has powers. I mean,
Clearly.
there's a couple shots where you see between his legs and the feathers from his wings are kind of showing.
Yeah.
I think that was Efren telling you, hey, there's more here than meets the eye. I mean, there's a little bit of mystical.
It's like we talked about the
elements.
profile of Arnold's beanbag in Terminator. It's just instead it's Angel's wings.
Yeah. Oh, because he's wearing the
Trench coat.
trench coat.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people would be freaking out a little more, probably.
Well, he does show his wings to a character, and she's just like, cool.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a little bit, though.
That's mid-coitus.
Yeah, he just wears this massive duster that has a huge hump in the back, and still everyone's just like, God, he's so sexy. But of course, he's stealing everyone's dates, all the dates in the venue. All the women are just flocking to him instinctively, like the sound of Capistrano, as Jim Carrey would say in Dumb and Dumber. So naturally, all the dudes get pissed. And like in
This is Texas, goddammit.
another Fairley Brothers movie when Woody Harrelson, you don't mow another man's lawn, and all these Texas rednecks get all uppity and pissed off and surrounded with pool cues and beer bottles. William Hurt and Pastorelli, Huey comes in, and he's just the only thing that he should have had like a bib on and like pasta sauce on his face. I don't know what they were eating, but I feel like the only thing that was missing was like him not being able to throw a punch because his hands are filled with donuts or something.
Right.
Because he gets immediately punched and knocked out.
He's a regular guy.
He is.
He's us. So, of course, he doesn't last 5 seconds in the fight. On the other hand, William Hurt,
holds his own.
he holds his own, as you would expect. Andy McDowell had already taken off because
Yes.
she was a little disgusted by the going. Actually, she comes back when they're dancing, right? She's just watching from the sidelines because that's when we find out that every woman smells Travolta differently.
It's his aroma.
Yeah, everybody.
It's his poison ivy, Uma Thurman.
Yes, whatever they like most, that's what they think he smells like.
And Andy McDowell was wearing the rubber lips and was able to. Doesn't he claim that he blocked it from
right?
her? Okay.
Yeah. But even then, she smells him because she says cookies.
That's right. He smells like warm cookies, and they're all arguing about it. It's caramels. No, it's cotton candy. And
What would you smell Travolta like?
what do I think he smells like? See, I've always thought Pierce Brosnan, probably smells the best of any man actor. That's one of my favorite lines ever in The Office when Andy says about Ryan, he smells like what I think Pierce Brosnan smells like.
Well, no, but I mean Travolta, the actor. I mean Travolta and
I'm
Michael.
sorry. I was going to say,
if
like,
you were, if
Brad
you were-
Pitt probably smells amazing. I thought we were going to start ranking shoot actors.
We should, but in the
Top
spirit
asses,
of
top
top
smells.
in the spirit of Michael, what if you were in the movie Michael and you were at that bar and you were a woman? I guess what would you think Travolta smelled like?
Probably like my great aunt Shirley's house, which just smelled like sugar and cigarettes. Like raw cane sugar and cigarettes.
Fresh baked bread would probably be my.
He's just chain smoking like a motherfucker. And during this throwdown, you would think like Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting by Elton John, or Give Me 3 Steps by Leonard Skinner, or Street Fighting Man by the Rolling Stones. Something along those lines would be playing here. Instead, we've just got Randy Newman tickling the ivory on the keyboard. And
As he has
it makes
been
it
doing
memorable.
for the entire movie.
It makes it memorable because it's not some just overly machismo fighting scene. It's like some dudes throwing down with the Toy Story score in the background.
Yep. And that's not to say that this movie is restricted to Randy Newman, because there are a couple moments where you just get an actual song.
Oh yeah, when we set off on the road trip, they I think play a CCR song.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. But they just chose to stick to Newman for the fight scene.
as anyone would
The only thing missing was a shot of Randy Newman actually playing the piano in one
At
corner
the tavern?
Yeah.
like a hat on that says Dolan 96. They get into a massive fight and beat up a lot of people, so naturally they're arrested and put in the holding cell. I don't even know if they tell us, in the movie what city we're in, or it's clearly not a city. It is a township, or
It's not Green, Texas.
it's not. They are in a holding cell. It's all four of them, and the local law enforcement was nice enough to make a little bed for Sparky outside the jail cell. I do love this because Huey basically tries to, Pirates of the Caribbean style, have the dog get the keys and bring it to it. And I love how Sparky just kind of wakes up and looks up and then goes back to bed. But this is where some development between Frank and Dorothy begins. Because isn't he like really mean to her?
Yeah, he crosses a line. He makes her cry, and then Travolta cashes in one of his favors because he made a deal with both Hurt and McDowell.
Mm-hmm.
In order for him to go on the trip, he told William Hurt, you owe me something. You owe me an apology. And then to Andy McDowell, he said, in order for me to not say what you're really up to, so Travolta knew from the beginning,
Yeah.
you're going to have to sing, but I'm going to tell you when. So this is when he cashes in the apology.
That's right. And so William Hurt, like Colin Hanks in Orange County, just instinctively, I'm sorry. And then Travolta looks at him like, you motherfucker.
From a dark corner of the cell, he's just shaking his head. Nope.
He's just whittling a shiv, just looking at William Hurt. So, but he does give her like a heartfelt apology.
Yeah, eventually. He probably Travolta's biggest accomplishment in this movie. A movie where he brings a living being back to life. More astonishing than that is just the fact that he turns William Hurt from an asshole into a decent person.
He turns him into William Heel. They get out of jail and they are seen by a judge the next morning, played by Terry Garr, who you pointed out is Phoebe's mom.
Yeah.
From apparently a television show called Seinfeld.
It's a television show called Buddies.
Buddies. Where are the friends? Yeah, it's same thing. Women are powerless against his charm. He's Charles Minor on another Office reference. We needed the talking head of Michael saying, I am aware of the impact I have on women. Or the effect I have on women.
Yeah, Travolta is very much aware of the effect he has on women. And he fucks himself away out of court.
He does. She just, it's like the beginning of a porno. She's like, you in my chambers. And then he basically just like Ric Flair struts with her, and then he doesn't look back at him. That's what's missing from it. Like when she opens the door and they go, and he should have just looked back and like nodded at him.
I'll see you in 2 hours.
Andy McDowell is very put off by this. She's maybe not put off, annoyed.
Yeah, but that's because even though she's not an angel expert, she does have a very Catholic school square idea of what an angel should be like.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Pastorelli is on the other end. Pastorelli's open to everything. And William Hurt is just a skeptic.
Yeah.
He's like, he's not a real angel.
Back on the road they go. I mentioned earlier they stop at the world's largest non-stick frying pan. And it originally wasn't even going to happen because William Hurt's like, no, we don't have time. And Michael, not necessarily at a protest, but just basically to show him who's really in charge, makes the tire blow out in the car. He wishes it into existence. And conveniently, it's about 100 yards away from where the frying pan is. So he goes off and walks down there.
Takes Sparky.
He does take Sparky, and he leaves the other three behind. And who comes to save the day and provide a spare tire and a tire jack but Silk Spectre 1 herself? We didn't even recognize her at first.
Nope.
Young, angel-faced Carla Gugino.
Way before she was corrupted by Robert De Niro and the comedian.
The third time Nora Ephron has been on the Contrarians podcast is the third time that Carla Gugino graces us with her presence. And
this is like all the signs at the end of this movie. It's just something special is a brewing.
It is. It's our first William Hurt movie.
Yeah.
And our second Andy McDowell. I mean, the numbers are just piling up here.
Our 100th John Travolta movie.
Yeah, for real. So, Gugino is a bride, having just left her wedding, along with a gentleman by the name of Tom Hodges, who plays the character Groom. They help...
Who plays really lucky man, married to Carla Gugino.
No shit. And he has like one line. I mean, his role in this movie, like what he did as an actor was get to kiss Carla Gugino and just eat in like ludicrous amounts of pie. So God bless him.
It was also his first job. As soon as he landed in LA, Hollywood stepped out the bus and said, hey, an audition.
Tom Hodges' in memory clip is going to be him eating a piece of pie and kissing Carla Gugino while I don't know who's going to be the hot shit in 2 years when he passes. It'll be Nicki Minaj doing a cover of some Beatles song with the rate they're going with that shit.
Travolta, speaking of Beatles, Travolta likes the Beatles in this movie.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, but he's pretty forward about He just sings, all you need is love.
Remember what John and
More than
Paul
once.
said, and Huey says, the Apostles? No, the Beatles. They all end up at a truck stop, diner, what have you. I was way too excited by Amy herself, Joey Lord Adams, reappearing on the podcast.
This is before she was being chased
Yes.
by Ben Affleck.
This would have been a year before her career-defining role as Amy. And she's just a waitress there. And
But wait, before we get like a lot of hate mail, she is not Amy.
No.
She is whatever her name is.
Anita.
No, I was going to say whatever her name is in Chasing Amy, because she's not Amy.
Shit,
Amy
yes.
is Silent Bob's girlfriend that he let get away,
So to speak.
so to speak.
Alyssa.
Alyssa, there you go.
Joey Lauren Adams playing Anita. The restaurant has the name Brown's. She's there. She gives the whole rundown of all the pies they have. It's not unlike the scene in Joe Dirt where he just goes down the whole rigmarole of all the fireworks at the
I haven't
stand.
seen Joe Dirt. not on my list.
Another great road trip movie about an angel on this earth. She says, hey, we got every type of pie under the sun. So they order 2 of every slice. And when we come back, she's just sitting on John Travolta's lap. I don't know if she's quit her job, but she's just there. She wants all that comes with John Travolta, all that comes with Michael. And this is the scene where Michael cashes in his favor for Dorothy to sing one of her country western songs.
Yeah, she. So this is a big celebration of pie, which I thought William Hurt was the only one obsessed with pie, because they made like at least 1 or 2 stops before this where he asked for pie and he was ignored because the waitress was too obsessed with Travolta. Here he finally gets his pie, and because somebody's paying attention to him, he's like, "Give me all the pies that you have." And so
He
everybody
doesn't want a chance going somewhere. And
Yes.
It's like when you find that McDonald's that has cherry pies and not just apple pies,
Yes.
you have to load up on them while you're there.
It's like when you find the McRib out of season.
Yes.
It's just like, gimme. And this prompts a discussion about what's so great about pies. And that's when I thought this was going to be a William Hurt monologue. But no, it turns out that everybody loves pie. Everybody just explains why pie is so good, I guess, as opposed to cake. I don't know.
Yeah.
But of course, the cherry on top of this pie conversation would be a song, and Travolta asks Annie McDowell to sing. So she has, I guess, a little ditty.
She sings about pie, a cappella, and then William Hurt says he wants another song, so she gets up there with the band at Brown's.
And then she really sings.
Yes.
Up till then, we've heard her sing a few times,
Mhm.
and it was just like, all right, that's Annie McDowell singing. And now she's on stage with a full band backing her up, and you're like, wow, country music lost a great singer when Annie McDowell decided that she was going to be an actress.
She should have played opposite Bradley Cooper in A Star is Born. Would have made that a much more interesting movie.
Well, then William Hurt should have been Bradley Cooper in A
Oh.
Star is Born.
God. Way more believable that William Hurt would be on stage at the Grammys pissing his pants than Bradley Cooper. The night concludes. Frank goes to walk Dorothy back to her room. They naturally, love is in the air at this point, as pie and music tend to spark. They share a kiss. They end up going up to her room together for the night. We see that Huey spending his evening in his hotel room, snuggling with Sparky. Truth be told, I think he had the best night of anybody.
I don't know about that, because Travolta seems to be having a lot of fun.
With Joey Lauren Adams comes out. I guess her shift was finally over. Or they just decided.
They cash her out. She's like, I don't care about my tips.
Yes.
I just need to go.
And then we hear her go into John Travolta's room, and then we hear her say, "Wings far out." You want to talk about acceptance in a time I want to go to, as opposed to where we are right now in 2020, is a time where someone could just take their shirt off and have wings, and it would just be like, cool.
Let's fuck.
Let's get down to business. Yeah, she said wings, cool. Now drop them.
And it's cool because then you get to the morning after, and she is blissful when she comes out of that hotel room.
Looks like she hasn't slept at all.
Yeah, but it's been the best day of her life. She's, like I told you, we're watching.
She's seen the face of God.
Yes, it was like there's no way any man would ever match up to this, and that's why she becomes a lesbian and goes on to star in Chasing Amy.
And that is the last we see of her until
In this
Chasing
movie,
Amy.
yeah.
William Hurt and Andy McDowell awaken the next morning to kind of just share stories about what brought them to the point they're at right now, which was, what was Andy McDowell's situation?
She's made allusion a couple times to just having a bad boyfriend, somebody. Several, but people taking advantage of her for her money or whatever, and she tries to tell William Hurt the truth, and he's just too busy mansplaining his love for her to really pay attention.
And trying to brag about how he's stuck with Bob Hoskins because didn't he beat someone up at his previous job?
Yeah, he punches at her.
Yeah,
and then he kind of almost a whisper is like, "Well, I was drunk." It's as much as we joke about Travolta and Joey Lauren Adams having great sex, the sex that William Hurt and Andy McDowell must have had probably twice, triple the intensity, because William Hurt is super clingy in this scene. He's just hugging her and telling her, "There's nothing that you could have done that I wouldn't forgive. I would look past everything." And then when she turns around, she's gonna say something. He's like, don't say it was a mistake. I couldn't take it. Like, dude, you've known her for 2 days.
Also, the intensity's got to be super high from the lovemaking because it's not the telltale clothes scattered around the room. Like, William Hurt's clothes were hung in the closet, so it was a thing of he slowly took them off, knowing what he was about to do.
He had been thinking about it the entire
road
trip.
5-foot distance where he just sauntered over with a full-on rager, just getting ready to give it to Andy McDowell, which is smart on his part. I mean, it's a veteran's move because he's still got the crease in his pants and everything. He's a good man.
He was thinking 5 moves ahead. It's like, what is he gonna look like when we come in the morning? He's brushing his teeth when we come into this.
Yeah,
he's not doing the rookie mistake of kissing somebody with bed mouth. Instead, he went, brushed his teeth, and then he goes for the kiss.
So they get dressed. They come downstairs. Michael is across the street from the motel with Sparky. Andy McDowell just kind of greets him, the customary, "Hey, Sparky." So he begins taking off to run to her in an active embrace. Unfortunately, simultaneously, a truck comes by and hits old poor Sparky and lays him out for the count.
The truck doesn't even slow down.
No.
It just keeps going.
A real asshole. Obviously, a sad state of affairs, probably the saddest scene in the movie. And William Hurt basically just cuts a promo on Michael and says, "You need to bring this dog back." And that's what he does. Michael first tries to say, it's not my area, but at this point, I think the audience knows Michael can do it if he wants. And he does.
He's been hoarding his miraculous power. He's been using it to get laid instead of...
He does bring back Sparky, but we quickly learn why he was apprehensive about it. Basically, angels, it's kind of a loose explanation from him, but angels have just a X amount, a certain allotment of miracles they can perform. And once they fill that up, that their time's pretty much done.
Well, not just that, there's also, they can only come back to Earth a certain amount of times. Mm-hmm. And this is the last time for him.
That's right.
Because a big thing throughout the movie is just that he is kind of saying goodbye to Earth because he's not ever going to come back. And he keeps saying that, well, I'm going to miss this. Actually, right before Sparky gets hit, it's just Travolta and Sparky. And Travolta gets his Oscar clip where he's just kind of teary-eyed and telling Sparky, "Man, this is harder than I thought." Saying goodbye.
Yeah, he's kind of talking about changing a man's heart and all these really heavy overtones of what he has to do as an angel.
Yeah. Oh, that's the other big secret running. It's like, what really brought Travolta here? And it's been hinted at that it had to do with William Hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this scene also, right before Sparky gets hit, isn't it when John Hurt or when William Hurt finds out that Andy McDowell was why she's really there on the trip?
Yes.
Is it because she tells him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she says, "I don't know anything about angels," and her reasoning for being on the trip was she was going to take Huey's job, right?
Yes, because she said her real job is she may not be an angel expert, but she's a dog expert. Mm-hmm. So she was going to train and bond with Sparky, and then once the Sparky was bonded to her, then Bob Hoskins could fire Pastorelli.
Sad state of affairs. A very vindictive and evil plot.
Yeah, and William Hurt turns out to be all talk because his whole "I would forgive you anything" doesn't really go that far.
Doesn't hold up. Michael brings back Sparky, and he begins fading quickly. His time on Earth is the hours at hand, so to speak. But he wants to make it to Chicago. The gang gets him there, and he does get to see the Sears Tower. And quickly after, he fades. They just lay him kind of down on the sidewalk there, and he is laid to rest. Fades
It's pretty
away.
smart that they chose. They could have taken him to a hospital because he was in pretty bad shape for that last leg of the trip. But instead, they chose to take him to the Sears Tower
Yes,
because they knew that some things are more important than medical care.
absolutely.
I mean, what were the doctors going to do anyway? He's an angel.
George Clooney in The Perfect Storm. Captain goes down with his ship.
We all go down with Travolta.
And exactly. In this case, our ship is John Travolta. Back at the National Mirror, they come back to let Bob Hoskins know it was just all a hoax. They don't have the heart to tell him the real story. Likely because he won't believe it. But they tell him it was all a hoax.
And he didn't care anyway.
No, he
just wants a dog.
Yeah, he's just happy that he gets to keep the dog now.
Or so he thinks.
Yeah, what happens here? This kind of lost me.
So Hoskins thinks that he can have the dog now, but the dog still hates Hoskins. And Eddie McDowell pretends that she can't control the dog.
Mhm.
So in Hoskins' eyes, the whole thing was a failure.
Yes.
And therefore, he has to keep Robert Pastorelli. He can't fire Pastorelli because the only person that the dog is bonded to is Pastorelli.
That's right.
William Hurt doesn't give a shit. He quits anyway.
Yeah.
Even though we won. He's like, I don't want to be in the same room as Andy McDowell. They go outside and he does his last name justice. He hurts Andy McDowell real bad in a sort of breakup where he just acts like, oh, we're just having fun. I don't know what the big deal is.
Oh, yeah, it's super cold. And poor Andy McDowell probably just went home and wrote a country western song about it. Then there's like 15 minutes of meandering where it's just kind of showing everyone trying to adjust back to life now that Michael has come and gone.
That's kind of like what happens when you lose someone.
Yes.
You meander through life for a while.
And then on one fateful night, after a series of doubting, to the point where William Hurt tries to, convince himself it didn't even happen. He's clearly in denial. But in one last act of angelic prowess, Michael brings back together Frank and Dorothy.
In the most playful, impish way.
He essentially makes them
Chase him.
literally have a meet cute.
A bump cute.
Like a full contact cute, excuse me. They're both chasing him or what they think is him, and then they run into each other, and they realize together what's brought them together and that they're supposed to be together.
Yeah, William Hurt drops the I love you
pretty quickly.
I'm telling you, that sex, like I said, must have been amazing.
It's pretty jarring.
Greg Kinnear, Toni Collette levels of just walls shaking.
And she reciprocates, and doesn't he ask her to marry him here?
Yes.
Yeah. And then they walk off together holding hands, and we see from a dark alley John Travolta appear, and he has Gene Stapleton with him again.
So this is where the movie threw me for a loop. Was she always an angel? Was it all part of a big con? She was never an old lady that was dying. It was all staged so that William Hurt and Andy McDowell and everything, everything happened the way that it was supposed to happen.
I mean, or
did she become an angel when she died?
They accounted for 70% of the people at her funeral, so I don't know if that many people knew her. So it's definitely within the house of probability.
I mean,
or possibility.
But they also destroyed a bank.
Yeah.
Or was that
that also looked like it was made of popsicle sticks. So
yeah, the thing is, how important is William Hurt in the fabric of the universe? That Travolta,
he is John Connor, apparently.
Yes, we must rescue his soul. He must fall in love again. I mean, it's pretty inspirational to know that the higher forces in the universe care so deeply about our personal lives.
Yeah, and they freeze time to where Travolta and Edith Bunker can just kind of dance freely in the streets before
down 6th Street.
Yes.
That's the only way that you're dancing down 6th Street. They go by the Alamo Ritz.
They stop in to see a
Interstellar in 35.
70 millimeter print of Interstellar.
Yeah.
And then the movie fades to black, and Randy Newman, I think, tickles the ivory once more to send us out. It's a movie.
It's a delightful movie about appreciating the things that are right in front of you. You got to stop, smell the flowers, and
Smell the cookies.
smell the cookies.
And get into a bar brawl at the green honky tonk.
All right.
Yeah. I'm out of things to say.
Let's
Let's
go to
move it
real
along
talk.
to real talk.
I thought angels were cleaner.
She doesn't mean to offend.
Yeah. Yeah. Miss Winters is an angel expert, and she gets kind of literal. What she probably wants to know is, can you fly?
I do not want to know if he can fly. I know he can't fly. Only little angels can fly because their wings stand
Says who?
I just thought,
Halos,
yes,
inner light.
yes.
I'm not that kind of angel.
What kind of angel are you?
Michael is an archangel. He battled Lucifer and threw him out of heaven. Revelation 12, verse 7.
That was a long time ago.
He smote a bank for me.
All right, we are recording for Real Talk for Michael.
What's the opposite, the Elizabethtown effect? I guess we'll call that the Rise of Skywalker effect. Like the more you think about it,
The
it
more
was
you
good.
let it
Like
rest.
that Contrarians Corner, my performance in particular was probably lacking because the more and more we kept talking, I was like, God, this movie's not good.
Really, I liked it.
Yeah.
Let's have it out.
Let's do
Battle.
Battle. Michael. Just looking at the poster here, it is cute. It has Scrappy in the bottom left corner with a feather in his mouth. I love a good dog in a movie. I love dogs. So the fact that there was that little story arc made me happy. Just
And this was a good dog. This was a well utilized dog in the story.
oh yeah, absolutely. As a dog can do, it served its purpose of bringing everyone together.
I mean, not as good as the dog in The Artist, but
Oh,
I don't even remember. I know the dog in The Artist, I think, saves him from the fire or something. I don't know.
he barks, and then the word bark hits the screen. All right. Michael, released again on December 25th of 1996. Trying to see what the budget was for this. Doesn't look like that's published anywhere. I do know the gross was around, or not the gross, excuse me, but the box office return was around 120 million. Yeah, I'm not seeing a budget anywhere. I mean, sometimes those things aren't really disclosed. Travolta movie, though, I can guarantee you he made the lion's share of the money. And then coming in a distant second place was Randy Newman.
I'm John Travolta, goddammit. Did you watch Pulp Fiction?
Oh my God, I got an Oscar. Or no, he didn't.
Oh my God, I got nominated.
Yeah, nominated. Nora Ephron directed this piece. She also wrote it, the screenplay, along with Delilah Ephron, Peter Dexter, and Jim Quinlan. Again, a 38%er on the old RT. So let's get into that. That does mean that a decent chunk of the critics enjoyed this.
I mean, not enough to overturn the rottenness, but David Anson from Newsweek says, I feared that Nora Ephron's Angel movie, Michael, would offer another heap of pre-digested uplift, but was pleasantly surprised to find something quirkier and more off-center. Nell Minow from Movie Mom says, some moments as lovely as the smell of cookies, especially the dance number.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we know what was on her mind
No.
through most of the movie. And finally, Caffeinated Clint from Film Thread says, Travolta magic is sprinkled everywhere. He does sprinkle his magic.
I will say it does appear he took this role pretty seriously because I obviously joked about his weight gain in Contrarians Corner, which also is definitively pot calling the kettle black. So there's that, and he did appear to be enjoying himself. At the same time, I felt like a lot of it was autopilot that he was on.
No, see, I think you're taking Travolta for granted here.
So that is a fair assessment because we have watched so much shit with him. So maybe this was the death rattle of him really trying.
I mean, him on autopilot is whatever the fuck he's doing in Wild Hogs. This is him having a good time does not mean that he wasn't trying, though. It's just that he was so joyous about a character that's meant to be joyous that maybe the line blurs.
So maybe autopilot is wrong. Maybe my thing with him is he possesses the ability to be so effortlessly good. And I think that's probably what's shining through here. This is clearly not Vincent Vega or, we're not talking Saturday Night Fever levels of performance here, but he's in there with some heavy swingers too. heavy punchers in the form of William Hurt and Andie MacDowell, and he just towers over them with his performance.
He has to. I mean, he's written to tower over everybody.
And he delivers.
Yeah.
So yeah, autopilot's the wrong way of looking at this. I think the way it should just be looked at, which is true, is that John Travolta was a once-in-a-lifetime talent when it came to acting.
He's not flexing any muscles.
There you
here.
go. That's
He's
what it is.
just kind of effortlessly being great.
He's just good. Although set in Iowa, many scenes were filmed around New Braunfels, Texas, which is, 40 miles away from us? Give or take? Could be at that Buc-ee's, probably about an hour and 20 minutes, depending on traffic. Green Hall, built in 1878 and known as the oldest continual dance hall in Texas, serves as Joe's, where the dance to Chain of Fools and the ensuing bar brawl take place. As I told Julio in recording, I've been there, and as I said in the first portion, they do have a plaque. It's known as the oldest honky-tonk in Texas. And having not been to Iowa, but having definitely traveled the back roads of Texas, especially central Texas, I can tell you it definitely matches up with the scenery in this one.
That's not honky tonk though. Once Travolta gets to the dancing.
Oh no! Yeah, it's not supposed to be. It's not supposed to be Green Hall. It's supposed to be Joe's.
Right.
They play different music at Joe's than they play at Green Hall. John Travolta took 500 hours of Spanish lessons in preparation for this film.
What?
Why, you may ask?
¿Por qué?
Just in case.
Please tell me that's the truth.
Yes.
Just in case.
That's the quote that he said when someone asked him about it. I mean, that's Travolta. That's
great.
How kind of weird he is. That makes perfect sense.
Maybe he was determined to be the Spanish dub in Spain.
That would be awesome.
Oh, Dios mío, soy John Travolta.
He just looks at Sparky. Vai con Dios. Jack Nicholson turned down the lead role.
Too old.
Oh, God, yes.
Unless you were going to recast Andie MacDowell also.
Before I get to the last piece of trivia here, I mean, what does work and succeed about this movie solely hinges on the fact that it's Travolta. I love Andie MacDowell. William Hurt's dope. I don't really romantic comedy William Hurt is not my go-to William Hurt, but
well, I think he's funny here. It's just that they rushed that relationship really fast.
Which is so weird because like this movie's an hour and 45 minutes long and it feels like they had like maybe 40 minutes of material and then they just needed to stretch that out, but then they rush like really important things in the movie.
Yeah, there was something. I know it's the convention, it's the romantic comedy convention, but I think even by the 90s, it was a little too late for that kind of instant "I'm in love, marry me." Thing that happens here. It's just, but before that, I think that the relationship was building up nicely. They sort of hated each other, didn't respect each other. Then he apologized, then she sang. Then they had sex. Okay, up till then we're good.
This was the same year as Jerry Maguire. Like, you want to talk about a movie that like builds to the relationship
that
working.
Earns
yeah,
its happy ending.
To be fair, Jerry Maguire exists on a different plane than Michael. And the last thing here that I found is that allegedly a sequel has been in the work for 20 years. Travolta consistently calls it his finest work. It's been expected for 2020.
God, Michael too. I would watch it.
It's like Revolutionary Road. I was talking about that earlier. It's Dorothy and Frank just absolutely miserable at home, and he shows up to, oh my God, I brought you together. Now I gotta show you the true meaning of love. Where are my smokes?
I would be very disappointed if the sequel didn't feature everybody. Well, actually, fuck, Robert Pastorelli's dead, so they couldn't bring him back. It's too sad now. Don't do it.
Well, I was about to say also, this movie is almost 25 years old, and as much as I don't like the thought of it, I'm pretty sure Sparky's no longer with us either.
Yeah, but you can fake Sparky.
And didn't Bob Hoskins pass?
Yeah, but you don't expect Bob Hoskins back.
Of course you do.
No, you can get his son is running the mirror now. But you expect the trio.
If you haven't caught on, that's the extent of my impression of Bob Hoskins. Yeah, you would have to get the band back together. I mean, fuck, you could do like at the end they wave to like the ghost reflection of everyone that's passed since then.
Oh my god.
Hayden Christensen's just there for no
Hoskins
reason.
and Pastorelli are like holding hands, just like waving back.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird movie that was made for like general popcorn consumption because it does tackle some interesting ideas. It seems like a movie that released today would lean much harder into a certain element of it, be it the surprising comedy or the religious aspect of it, or the love story. It seems like definitely a movie that existed in 1996. Who was it that we had on here that referred to something as just Jordan? It's a nothing movie, like, and that's how I see this here. I certainly don't feel like I wasted my time watching it or anything like that.
This is better than Passengers.
I don't think so.
I think Travolta alone elevates it. And
well, we talked about it, when we're talking about Travolta movies, we just got to stay in the wheelhouse. And this was the year before Phenomenon. Like I said, I would definitely rewatch this before Phenomenon, and that was more well received than this.
Why? I don't understand. What made people mad that Travolta was desecrating religion, or because I laughed a lot. I laughed more than I remember.
It's entertaining.
I've seen this movie once before, and I remember the first time I watched it, I was kind of The ending in particular was a turnoff. This time, because I knew what was going to happen, I was just like, whatever. That's right. He disappears, but then he comes back.
The movie goes on way too long after he dies.
Well, yeah, it's such a way to cheapen it too, because he dies, but then it turns out that not
He
really.
didn't die?
Yeah, so.
And then, yeah, you have that thing of like, okay, was Edith part of this plan?
If not, why is she there?
It doesn't answer, though, why William Hurt is special enough to warrant all this.
Right. What made Travolta just pick William Hurt and it's like, my last trip to Earth is going to be about this, unless that was bullshit. And the ending is supposed to mean that, no, there's no limit to how many times he can come. He just said that to get William Hurt on his side. I don't know. But the mythology, and every time that Travolta would start talking about what it was like to be an angel and the things that he had done and the things that he could do, I always found it really funny. And if nothing else, I wanted more of him. I think that when you're saying, what if they made this movie today? At least if it was up to me, I would focus more on the Travolta mythology and, what is it like for an angel to come here and just be the way that Travolta was? And you would think it's, in a way, that's the cheapest joke. It's like, oh, it's an angel, but he's also really crass and, like sweet a lot of sugar. And, that's kind of like an easy joke to make.
Drinks.
And smokes, has sex. But Travolta is so lovable as this angel that really he kind of transcends the easy joke, and it's just a character now. I totally buy him as a character that, I take it back. I want to see more Michael adventures. They don't have to bring everybody else back.
The problem is with all the shit he's had put in his face, he'll look younger in this one than he did.
It's a prequel.
Yeah.
This is where you find out why
he
William
was sent
Hurt.
back yeah. William Hurt with like an amazing wig on. No, I really loved that first shot of Travolta, just from a standpoint of he pulls it off really well when he just walks down to the kitchen and he's woken up, he's got a fresh smoke going, and I'm pretty sure he grabs a Schlitz beer out of the fridge, which is such an obscure brand to grab and pop a top in the morning. It's like I said, it's weird, the pacing and what is focused upon is so disjointed that I forget we did another movie recently where I was talking about this. This felt so much longer to me than Watchmen, which is 3 hours and 15 minutes long.
Duplex.
God. Okay. Yes. This doesn't feel as long as Duplex. And I would watch Michael 10 times in a row before I watch Duplex again. But the pacing is so weird, and like the things they choose to focus on versus further diving into why, like that whole scene where he like runs at the bull and they just butt heads. That takes up like 5 to 6 minutes of the movie that you could spend explaining more about Andy McDowell and William Hurt's past, because their story is basically, hello, oh, we're with an angel. Do you want to fuck? Hey, this is how I screwed up my job. Hey, this is how I screwed up my life. You did this? I don't want to talk to you. I love you. Let's get married.
You're missing 2 critical beats.
What's that?
I'm sorry, and let me sing you a song about pies.
Touche. Yeah, the ending is like the Simpsons rewritten end of Gone with the Wind. When they cut out, frankly, I don't give a damn. They just, frankly, my dear, I love you. Let's get married. That's how this movie ends.
But I like the William Hurt character, which is also why this feels such a betrayal, I guess, of his character. I would have no problem with him getting to that point, but yeah, we're missing certain steps. But talk about effortless. I think that he is also pretty effortless at being just a sort of playing a smarmy reporter that's kind of given up on being ethical. And it's not necessarily that I've seen many William Hurt roles like that. He usually just feels like I've seen more like play the patriarch. But he's just so good at doing that and being just.
You believe that
smart.
he really doesn't give a shit and would like step on your neck to get ahead type thing. Yeah. He's believable. Definitely. I mean, everyone is. We talk about all the time and when we do movies like this that this movie was not made for you and I to view through 2020 lenses.
Right.
And I mean the year 2020. It was made for mass consumption in 1996 when Travolta was riding on top of the world. And to me, a more interesting movie is they're not middle-aged, but, approaching it. I would guess that like Andy McDowell and William Hurt were like early 40s in this. But the whole idea of just like, yeah, I'm attracted to you, but I'm a damaged person, so I don't want to actually do anything. Like there's more intrigue in that, but that's not what this movie is trying to do. Unfortunately, that's just kind of where my brain goes when I watch movies sometimes, especially movies where the acting's really good and there's like the table set for something more fascinating than what I actually get. But then with something like this, I just have to remind myself this was for the silver-haired women on, after the Bridge Club to go together to see the John Travolta movie where he plays an angel. And it's the funniest thing you've ever seen. I remember going to see it in the theater. I'd have a hard time calling it a family movie, but it's not inappropriate for children. I know that much.
I mean, they might wonder a little bit about what Travolta was doing with Joey Lauren Adams once they went into his room.
God bless.
Or why William Hurt is putting his pants back on the next morning.
I mean, a generation of 16 and 17-year-olds could take note. Hang your clothes up. Start with an approach.
You have the whole night.
Yes, exactly. You have, your wedding night to just rip your clothes off each other and go to town. Take your time. Make sure take some pie back to the hotel room. Joey Lauren Adams, man, what a smoke show. So fucking hot. And I mean, Andy McDowell's gorgeous. And then you got Carla Gugino.
Just warming up to take over Hollywood.
That happened at the same time with you and me realizing who she was. Yep. She was in the movie for maybe 5 or 6 minutes at this point. And then we were like, wait a minute.
Do you think that we would have recognized her if we hadn't seen her name in the credits?
Probably not.
I was bummed that she didn't get, because I kept waiting for her to have a scene.
I mean, she has a nothing part, but it was definitely a novelty to see her. Homeboy, Robert Pastorelli, who, we shit on to no end for Be Cool. He's perfectly fine in this. He's like, in another life, I could have seen George Wendt playing this role of like, kind of like the thankless, disheveled man who gets his job done, but it's kind of an oaf or a lovable loser type thing.
Yeah, he's just like we were saying in Contrarians Corner. He's a regular guy. He would be Josh Gad in this one. He's the comic relief.
2020
next to the alpha male.
2020 Michael. We got Josh Gad as Huey.
Actually, no. Josh Gad would be Travolta. No, you don't buy him as the guy that smells like cookies and can hook up with whoever. All right, he's Huey.
He's Huey. Who would be Dorothy? Who's kind of a seasoned actress that could do that?
Amy Adams.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
But now you need somebody who can go toe to toe against Amy Adams for the William Hurt part.
For Frank, I don't know. He's not old enough. I would say Adam Driver, but he would need about another 5 or 6 years on him.
No. Unless you forget about Amy Adams, just cast Scarlett Johansson, and that way you have the Marriage Story reunion.
Yeah, no. And then who would play Michael?
Fassbender.
Fassbender would be a really good Frank.
You think? Yeah, he can be an asshole.
Yeah, and him and I
when he yells at Michael and basically bullies him into bringing Sparky back.
Yes. Oh, hell yeah.
Striker!
Him and Amy Adams going toe-to-toe would be tremendous. And then, shit.
Just because we've compared him before, JGL as Michael. He can dance.
He's too young, though. He can dance. He's too young.
But there's no age to Michael. He's an angel. He can look however he wants.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah. I was going to say Mickey Rourke. But I was thinking, yeah, the timeline would match up because that would have been Mickey Rourke. He should not have cashed in on Whiplash. He should have said, God damn it, I'm coming off this Oscar nomination. We're remaking Michael. That's what we're doing. And I'm going to be the angel. But there's no way that would be pulled off because I don't think I could ever buy that Mickey Rourke has sympathy for anyone. Antonio Banderas. Yeah.
He wouldn't even have to learn
I'm going
Spanish.
for a little bit older. I'm looking for some silver, some pepper.
Banderas right now in that new movie where he got nominated.
He can dance too, can he?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. There you go. Hollywood. Make it happen.
Make it happen. Antonio Banderas, Josh Gad, Michael Fassbender, Amy Adams.
And then in the Bob Hoskins role, we'll do something kind of off the wall, something that they're not expecting.
Does he have to be British?
No.
Gender swap. It can be just a hardcore, hard-ass woman.
You could do that, or you could do Terry Crews, because you still have some the element of you kind of laugh at him when he gets really serious about stuff because he's so good with the physical presence. I think that would work too. And I could totally buy him being really smitten with a dog and just really wanting to keep this and win a bet. So there you go. And then fucking McGee can direct it. I don't know. It's like I said, like Jordan said about Passengers, and I think that's kind of that was a perfect quote for this podcast. A nothing movie's fine. It doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. My biggest thing was there were points in this where I was just, this movie felt like a hose that occasionally Nora Ephron stepped on and allowed to build up for a second, and then a lot of shit came out all at once, and it was like stretches of nothing happening and meandering, and then a ton of dialogue or exposition all at one time. The pacing really threw it off, but that's no one that acted in this movie is at fault for any of those issues.
No. And I think, honestly, if the ending was better, if they stuck the landing, we wouldn't worry so much about the meandering, because you'd be oh, it was worth it. But because the ending is just so weird, you go back and just poke things. You're like, why did you meander when you could have been building up better to this?
Like, I think the time from him resurrecting Sparky to him dying is probably like 3 or 4 minutes.
Yep. They get in the car and then he dies.
And that would work if it was a movie from the 50s where the credits roll right after he dies. But no, it'll
be so grim too. He dies, he disappears on the asphalt. Roll credits.
I can't let you. And Randy Newman just over the credits.
Yeah.
I mean, did that take you out of it at any point?
The music?
Yeah.
No, I was laughing about it because you kept mentioning it. So it was always in my mind, but not in a bad way.
It was so weird because they did pick some really good road trip songs that were like actually, licensed music.
Yeah.
But then during certain scenes, just I can just see Randy Newman with the keyboard that you strap around your neck, and it like rested on his belly, like he has a gut like me, and he's just like walking behind Travolta, like. And the idea of John Travolta and Randy Newman speaking to each other is unbelievable to me.
Oh my God, I love your music.
Oh, I love you too, John.
Where do you rank this on Travolta dance scenes?
It's
no Jack Rabbit Slims.
No, well, what is?
And it's not
the goat John Travolta dance scene is Born to Hand Jive.
Right.
That's. You want to talk about seeing the face of God. After we did Grease for the podcast, I like rewatched that twice a day, every day for like a week afterwards. Because I didn't realize, and as many times I had seen that movie, I didn't realize until we watched it for the podcast, how much of that sequence is one shot. It's so fucking impressive. And then Jackrabbit Slim's rules. This is iconic in a sense of it's Texas iconic. I mean,
the most southern Travolta we've seen.
Yeah, and that place in green really hinges their hat on it. And I remember going there, I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But rewatching it, I mean, obviously it's better than Be Cool.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And then what else are we contending with? It's not better than anything in Saturday Night Fever.
There's the Elvis number in Look Who's Talking To.
I forgot about all that. Yeah, I would put it above that. It's so funny to go over Travolta's filmography and just see Look Who's Talking To Pulp Fiction. It's like, God, what a springboard. We talked about it during the summer of Travolta, and if you are a recent listener or a longtime listener and never got around to listening to that, I do recommend going back to it, because one of the things that we talked about, and obviously we mentioned on here, is the effortless nature of John Travolta. And even with this movie being just kind of middle of the road as it is, the dance scene, it goes back to what we talked about with that. He is able to be a cool white guy, which is like one of the most difficult things to pull off ever. And he has this just indescribable ability to turn it on at the drop of a hat. And that happens here too. And just the way he's like circling those women and like making them dance with each other. It's just like, shit, man, this is great. This is a perfect YouTube scene. Sometimes you just get a wild hair up your ass and you're looking at clips on YouTube, looking this up and watching it.
Just look up Travolta's dance from Michael.
Yeah. I think we talked about when we did our wrap up on that, though. There's really no bad Travolta dance scene except for Be Cool.
Yes. And maybe even then, that's on the Travolta curve. Because if you were just comparing his dance number in Be Cool versus just your average dance number from a middle-aged white guy, it would be decent. It would put up a fight.
Is there any dance scene in Get Shorty?
No.
Shame.
He knew when to like rein it in.
He still, the part of that movie that I retain for just what I was saying is like, fuck, he's such a cool white guy. There's a part, I think it's at the end when him and Rene Russo are leaving set, and he just walks over to it's his car, and he walks to the passenger side and opens the door for her and closes it behind her, and it's just such a small but the way he does it and everything, I'm like, God damn, what a G.
I just thought of this, but I had thought about it while we were watching the movie. Do you think in this remake they would focus so much on the fact that he can just make women drop their panties in a second?
Well, Fassbender, yeah. And Antonio Banderas. I mean,
yeah. Well, but that's the thing. Are you taking agency away from women? You never see it happen to men. So what are you saying by the fact that they're vulnerable to this and men aren't? Personally, I mean, gender politics aside, I think it would be funnier, and maybe you couldn't do that in the 90s, but you could do it now, if everybody was horny for Michael.
Yeah.
Everybody can smell him, and yeah, he can block people, but the fact is just that, because angels are supposed to be genderless. Now I sound like Andy McDowell in the in the movie, but traditionally you would think an angel is just kind of goes both ways. So
yeah, and you don't have to take it completely over the top to where he like has sex with a dude, has sex with a girl, that type of thing. You don't even have to do scenes where like he has sex.
Basic Instinct 2 kind of orgy.
Yeah. But no, that'd be great. Like just dancing with anybody and everybody, and like everyone's just horny for him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a bar.
I mean, it is
anymore.
Antonio Banderas, for Christ's sake. It'd be believable.
Fassbender just like dabbing at his forehead.
Oh dear. I guess if I was more prone to being offended by those things, maybe you could take umbrage with that women just fawn over him in this, but
it's played as a joke.
It is, and there's no part where he like specifically just takes advantage of women.
No, I mean he
does fuck
the judge, Phoebe's mom,
and Joey Lauren Adams, but
Joey Lauren Adams, I like it because they show you the aftermath, and she is very happy.
Yeah.
So you're just left to believe that it was a great experience.
And then he comes out of his room like his hair is kind of unkempt and he's got that big goofy smile on his face. Yeah, at no point does it seem like it's I mean, it's written by a woman, but at no point does it seem like they're trying to act like women are dumb.
Right. It's a supernatural thing, and
Yeah.
Annie McDowell, I think, holds her own. I mean, granted, she was blocked, but
Even still, like, we don't know that to be true, but
just Travolta. That's his default defense. If you're not hot for him, it's like, oh no, I blocked it. I planned it that way.
again, much like our soon-to-be-released Street Fighter episode, would wage substantial money on this being the most in-depth analysis of the movie Michael in a film podcast on the internet right now. I would give this a C. This is a middle-of-the-road movie. I certainly didn't feel like I wasted my time. There were issues I had with, as I mentioned, the pacing and the writing, but at the end of the day, there's enough to make it worth watching. I'm not going to own it or, regularly revisit it, but
3.5 stars for me. I believe that if the ending was stronger, everything else would look better in retrospect, but because it's just so weird that it feels like a cheat. And this is me being way too analytical for what they are doing, but if you tell me that this is Travolta's last trip and you're setting a sort of timer where you just say once he spends out his miracles, he's gone, and they reach that timer and he, in quotation marks, dies, and then you just bring him back like nothing.
it seems like something, it feels like one of those movies that the test screening, the response was, well, we want Travolta back, so they just added the ending.
Right, because you don't need him back in order for William Hurt and Andy McDowell to just get back together.
Oh, no, yeah.
They could just run into each other anyway. They could even see the signs like they were doing where they hear talk about angels and they see Michael's name everywhere. And then they run into each other and they get back together. But yeah, I can just see either studio head or test audiences going, but what happened to Travolta?
Kelly Preston. You're going to get my John back on screen. Yeah. It should have ended with them getting pie at a diner together.
Yes.
And their waiters
10 years later.
Yes, and their waiter's name, you see just the name tag, it says Michael. Done.
Done.
You're welcome, Hollywood. All right, so that is going to wrap up episode 103, Michael. Moving on to 104, going back to the other side of the coin of the fresh movies, the certified fresh films. We are tackling our first David Lynch movie of the podcast.
We're old enough to handle it now.
I believe so. It's been about a 6-year run building to this. The 93% Towering Inferno Blue Velvet on Rotten Tomatoes. Interestingly enough, Roger Ebert gave it 1 star, and I'm sure we will talk about Mr. Ebert's review of it when we get to it.
It's funny that you mentioned Jordan earlier because he finally watched it, I guess, and did not care for it.
It's David Lynch, man. There's not.
I've seen it once,
It's fucking weird.
I mean, I remember stuff about it. There's a severed ear at the beginning, I think.
There's a very uncomfortable scene with Dennis Hopper and the young lady in the movie. I forget her name. So that'll be fun. It'll be very interesting trying to do our whole gimmick with the David Lynch movie. I will say I have just undying adoration for that man, just the way he carries himself and how not seriously he takes it, but at the same time he has a clear vision for what he wants his movies and his career to be. I think I think his way of carrying himself and his approach to the game is one that should be emulated more.
He would have kept Michael dead. He wouldn't have caved to the pressure.
And the sequence of Andy McDowell singing would have been a lot longer, and at some point William Hurt just would have rubbed the pie on his face. So Blue Velvet, looking forward to doing that, figuring out how to approach it in the way we do.
Also, since we mentioned the Summer of Travolta, I don't think that we've actually mentioned it on air. We've made allusions to it on our Instagram and on Twitter, but we do have a summer event this year.
This is your brainchild, Julio. Your baby.
It's been run by and approved by the Mattis machine.
Yes.
Well, I don't think I'm gonna. No, fuck it. We'll just go and give you the entire lineup of what will be known as the Summer of Winona, and that is Winona Ryder, of course. So much like we did with John Travolta, we're gonna do a full-on 4 months of Winona Ryder movies, her ups and downs, and her in-betweens. So brace yourselves. Catch up on some of these if you haven't seen them. We're going to start with Mr. Deeds, then go on to Edward Scissorhands, then Alien Resurrection, then Little Women, the 94 version, obviously not the very recent Oscar nominee.
Spoiler, there's not a Little Women, there's a lot of women.
Reality Bites, of course, one that's been mentioned on the podcast plenty of times. Bram Stoker's Dracula. This movie called the Darwin Awards, which I was just kind of like scraping the barrel of the rotten movies that she's had recently. And I was like, this looks interesting. Beetlejuice, The Crucible, The Dilemma, Heathers. And then we'll close with, just like we had the Travoltis at the end of the Summer of Travolta, we'll have the Winonis. And we'll also address Stranger Things, which seems to be the big thing that, the big strange thing that she has going on.
Yeah.
The last 3-4 years.
Set the world on fire.
Yeah. So be ready for that. That starts on May 1st.
All right. Moving along to plugs. Our perennial plugs. The Festive Years provide our opening and closing tracks, those being Last Stand and Summer of 99, respectively. Be sure to visit thefestiveyears.com for all your Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster, Hans Rothgieser, he did our logo. He has 2 podcasts, Nacion Combi and Living in Peru. Nacion Combi is in Spanish. You can find it on any podcatcher. It's about Peruvian current affairs. Living in Peru is about Peruvian immigrants, or immigrants to Peru, rather. It's in English. And you can find it on iVox. He also does a lot of other stuff. You can look it up at mildemonios.pe. That's MILDMONIOS. You can contact him on Twitter at mildemonios. Email him mildemonios@hotmail.com. Ask him about his latest novel, zombie novel set in Peru, the 3rd in a series that seems to be best-selling. Hans also has a lot of thoughts about movies. It's because of him that we did an episode on the original Fly a few months ago, and he finally got around to sending me some feedback about that. So we'll play that right now.
You know, guys, I told you not to do it, and you just went and did it. I told you not to devote a whole episode to the original Fly movie, 1958. And don't think for a moment that I had any intention of manipulating anybody by presenting it as a dare. I tried to warn you, and you just didn't listen. I'm surprised that you like this crap. It's such a simple little story with very simple characters. The lady goes through a traumatic experience. She just saw his husband as a monster struggling between committing suicide and killing her. And she just goes through a day or two of laying in bed. And that's it. Life goes on like nothing for her. Not only that, but she hooks up with the dead husband's brother, Vincent Price. Just like that. And Vincent Price, he just shows up, hears this crazy story, and instead of sending her to the madhouse, just keeps her around. Oh no, wait, he sees his brother as a freaking fly, crying for help with that funny voice. Help, help. I mean, if that happens to me or you or any person in the real life, he will be traumatized for life. But he just goes on, hooks up with the lady, takes care of the kid, and that's it. Nothing happens. And the special effects are bad, even for the time. It's 1958. It's the same year that Dracula was released, with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Such a fine movie, with very good effects, and very good makeup, and very good action scenes. And very profound story. Of course you are not going to make an episode about 1958's Dracula. You are too soft for that. But believe me, it's a very profound movie, so in comparison to that, The Fly is crap. It's a piece of garbage. And the year before that, The Incredible Shrinking Man was made, written by Richard Matheson, the guy who wrote I, Legend. Compare The Fly to Body Snatchers, 1956. Body Snatchers is the golden standard for classic American horror films. The Fly. What's wrong with you? Although I guess it's a good thing that you made a line in the sand for The Fly, and don't pretend to go any further. Body Snatchers is way out of your league, guys. Don't you dare making an episode about that. You are not ready. Well, I just hope your audience knows better anyway. Bye.
So
Sounds like a challenge.
yes, that was what to say. So when we get around to our horror movie arc later this year, that he already made us special logos for, I guess we'll be taking a look at Dracula and Body Snatchers.
We'll have to put it to the test.
Yeah, we'll look at the Rotten Tomato scores and go from there.
I think what made him most mad was we ended up doing the episode and then he listened to it and just got mad about it all over again. It was like self-fulfilling prophecy, pretty much.
It was like somebody disliking The Rise of Skywalker, then listen to an episode of podcast about Rise of Skywalker. It just reliving the horror once again.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Not something I've done multiple times.
Oh, that's happened to me. I was referring to myself.
Fair enough. Plugs, like I said, have uncharacteristically just been kind of burning through a stack of DVDs in my room. I guess I'll just bring up Revolutionary Road because rewatching it, I think I've officially entered that into the Requiem for a Dream of I can completely acknowledge how powerful and good it is. It's so well shot and so well acted. It looks amazing. Like the wardrobe.
Requiem for a Dream or Revolutionary Road?
Revolutionary Road, I'm sorry. But why I say I entered in that category, I probably have no interest in ever watching it again in my life.
Is it too unpleasant?
Yes, and I remember loving it. I watched it once when it came out in theaters in 2008, and I don't remember why I remember this so well, but I do. I went to the theater I worked at the time, and no one else was in there, and I had 2 to-go boxes full of chilies, and I just like spread out over like 4 seats and had like a jumbo fruit punch, and there's just me alone in the theater chowing down on a triple play and chips and salsa from Chili's. Just like, nah, they're not happy, just being really obnoxious in the theater. But remember in our Terminator episode where I talked about watching T2 at like 16 and being like, this isn't that bad, like the scene where all the kids die.
Yeah.
And then rewatching it as an adult and being like, this is fucking awful. When I watched it when I was 20, 21, whatever, 22, I was just like, oh, this is good. This is a good movie.
Uh-huh.
And then rewatching it the other day, I was like, this is terrifying. It's like, this is not what I want out of life, and I hope it doesn't come to this. But I can acknowledge how good it is. Much like Requiem for a Dream, it's so off-putting and so unpleasant. And being 32 years old, going on 33, I only have so much time left on this planet that I'd rather be not watching something that will put my mind in kind of a dark place for a couple of days. But like I texted you though, I remembered Michael Shannon got a Best Supporting Actor nomination. He's in that movie for like 7 minutes. He went to the Judi Dench School of award nominations.
I'm gonna make my impression.
Yeah,
my mark.
All of that to say, and I mean to cut you off, Julio, but if you've never seen Revolutionary Road, you should see it at least once. It's an amazing movie. Kate Winslet in particular is just fucking fire in that movie. And I know we have 2 listeners that don't like that movie. So
I know Eddie. Who's the other one?
Brandon Curtis.
Oh, he doesn't like it either?
No.
God damn it.
They can both go fuck themselves.
It's relevant too because there's a lot of parallels between Marriage Story and Revolutionary Road.
Such is my understanding.
Yeah. Completely different stories, but there's also just basically the idea of a couple that at one point they loved each other and then now they're at a point where it's just not working out and how they handle it.
Oh, and I completely forgot. I remembered Leo has his like side piece.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot like he just gets her drunk to fuck her.
Jesus. I didn't remember that either.
Yeah, so watching that fold out, it was just kind of like, when you start the movie that you think you remember smiling and then, the Saturday Night Fever. Oh, no, this isn't what I remember at all.
You started missing the chilies.
Yeah,
reaching for chips that are not there.
Where are my chicken crispers?
My plug last night, I don't know what I would have plugged if I hadn't gone to the Bass Theater last night, but I watched this show called Come From Away, and I knew nothing about it. All I knew was the title. They handed me a program, and I just put it away. I was like, let's go into this cold, because it's so rare, especially if you're going to see something on stage. Usually it's like a big show that you already knew about. Right? I know what Les Mis is about. I know what the next one they're showing is like Aladdin, but this I had no idea. So, but you might know this story, Alex. I don't know, because I was telling Kelly about it, and she recognized it. I guess sometime after, right when 9/11 happened, and basically a whole bunch of planes had to be redirected because the American airspace.
Oh, is that the one that's like, what country is it in?
Canada.
Yes.
A whole bunch of planes get redirected to Canada, and they land on this little town, and they basically for 5 days the town just embraces all these people from all over the world, and then after 5 days they have to go back to the States. But it's 5 days that are basically the 5 days after 9/11. So there's a lot of shit going on,
uncertainty and whatnot.
Yeah, and so they made a musical about that, and I had no idea what I was in for. It opens and you're just introducing the town in a song and whatever, and then they talk about planes landing. And I'd heard that story, but a long time ago. I had no idea that there was a musical about it and anything. So about 25-30 minutes in, they finally get to the point where they actually say it out loud, and they have a president that sounds a little bit like Bush giving a message, and basically that's when it clicks. Oh, it's 9/11. And that's when it clicked for me. It's not like the show was designed for that. I'm sure the show is designed for you to go in knowing that it's 9/11 from the beginning.
Yeah.
But to me, I was kind of cold on the show. I was like, I don't get it. It's just all about these quirky Canadians being quirky. And then the moment that it's revealed that this is happening on 9/11, that's when I perked up and was like, oh, this matters. And then the show gets obviously a lot more powerful as it goes on, because it's just people's reactions, the Americans' reactions to 9/11 and reactions from other people in the world, in just the fact that this Canadian town, by all accounts, because it's based on a true story, they just went out of their way to embrace everybody at this tough time. And people opened their houses. They fed them. They gave them phones. They did everything they could to make them, and they couldn't leave. The thing is, the planes couldn't leave right away because the American airspace was still restricted until they sorted things out. So they were stuck there, and all the Americans were desperate to get back to the States. So it's such a cool story. It's I love musicals, so the musical numbers are great. And something that really struck me was that it moves so fast that there's really no pause at the end of the songs, where usually people would clap. So I think that it ends they play the first song, you clap, and then there's no pause for maybe an hour, 45 or maybe even 70 minutes. And so when there was another pause at the end of a big number, the entire theater, who had been just containing their applause and their enthusiasm, finally erupted an applause. And then all the way till the end, it was really, really cool. So nice. I would say, obviously, the soundtrack is on Spotify, or not the soundtrack, what do you call it? The original Broadway cast recording is on Spotify. If you go on YouTube, you can look up clips from when they were at the Tonys and when they were on other stage awards events. There's a bunch of them from the British cast, but it's really cool. It's not a super complicated story, so I think whatever you enjoy, whatever you find online, you can enjoy it separate from everything else. But then, of course, it's always better if you just see the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if Come From Away is playing anywhere near you, I would say just go and enjoy it.
Cool.
We'll cry a little.
Oh, yeah. It's a horribly emotional thing.
Yeah.
Having lived through that, too. I always like to use the phrase opposite side of the coin. Or other side of the coin, what have you. The other side of the coin of what I talked about with T2, of living through something as big as that, and something positive, without question, the most traumatic thing I've lived through is September 11th, in my lifetime, my generation, any hyperbole you can say. And so it's cool to see that there are finally things that can be made from that accent. What good in humanity kind of came from it. Regardless, it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
Nearly 4,000 people died in one day for no reason. Anyway, that wraps up episode 103, and we're getting up there. It was like after the UFC passed the UFC 100, for the first probably until 130, I hadn't accepted that we were past 100. So that's every time now until we get to about the 130 mark. I'm going to keep thinking that way, but On deck is Blue Velvet. It's going to be a slightly different movie than Michael. I'm looking forward to it, though. But for now, that's going to do it for the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. And we will catch you next time with Mr. David Lynch.
That summer of 1999, back when you blew my mind and told me secrets in the dark. I'm just fine. Thanks for asking. I just can't quite get by that time in 1999. How are you? I hope you're great.
Edith Bunker. Gee. That's... sorry. Julia's looking at me with the blankest of stares right now.
No. I know who she is. There is this is probably gonna go at the very end of the episode, but there is that episode. I mean, one of those like VH1's countdowns or whatever. Where they're saying like the most disturbing TV episodes of family shows, and there's one where it's basically a home invasion episode. It's just her and some dude that breaks into the house.
Oh yeah.
And have you seen it?
Yeah.
That's how I remember that woman from I haven't even seen the episode, but I remember the clips.
Yeah, her whole shtick on that show was how annoying her voice was and how screechily she could sing.
Yeah, that was not the point in that episode. That episode was just dead serious. It's a very special episode of All in the Family.